Hello, this is Nicole. Welcome to my channel. Let me introduce you this girl. Her name is Lapis. She is a classic vintage porcelain doll, and she is going to be transformed into the Kraken. Well, a lady Kraken. But this is not a video about her. It's about the ship, which is caught in her tentacles. I mean, she will be a monstrous giant octopus. There has to be a ship. For snack. Come with me for a dangerous trip full of adventures, wrong decisions, lot of mistakes, and pure moments of joy. Let's go sailing. Years of scientific research provide us with evidence that most of the Krakens prefer vintage sail ships. Since Lapis is going to be an aristocrat's lady Kraken, I decided to go for a vintage ship that will look kind of royal. She is an elegant girl and does not eat dirty pirates. I had no idea though on how to do that. So I went online to do some research and see what other people are doing. And I found some designs for ship modeling with a lot of numbers and measurements and calculations and more numbers, more measurements, more calculations. Nope, that's not for me. But I did want to build that ship for my girl. So after some deep thinking, I decided to do it freehand out of XPS foam. No numbers. I folded a piece of paper in half and designed half the top view of a ship. That way, when it was unfolded, I ended up with a symmetrical design without taking any measurements. I pinned my cutout on a piece of XPS foam and I transferred the design on it. After that, I used my brand new hot wire cutter, believing that it will perform a smooth, clean cut and I will get a nice shape of the main body of my ship. That went well. Good thing that XPS foam is sandable, so at the end I got the texture that I wanted. I then visited Pinterest, searching for an image that I could use as a reference for the upper body of my ship. I made some marks using the main body as a guide, and I started improvising. After a lot of trials and errors, I managed to build something that looked like a boat.
A boat? Hey, I've seen a boat!
This is the lower body of Lapis, which is of course still under construction. I wanted one of her tentacles to penetrate the ship, so I made a hole on the upper deck for that. I wanted the whole ship to be covered in wood, so I cut a bunch of strips out of popsicle sticks and started gluing them on every flat surface. Seeing the height of this door, we can only assume one thing. This is a ship of royal dwarfs. I finished covering all my flat surfaces with wood planks and then I started building the keel. Of course I didn't know that word. I googled it.
Keel, the lengthwise timber or steel structure along the base of a ship, supporting the framework of the hull.
I glued a few more missing planks and the whole thing still looked like a boat.
Boat? Hey!
I decided to trust the process and move on to the next stage. I soaked a few popsicle sticks in water for 2 days, so I'll be able to bend them. Now, the idea was cut wooden planks, bend them, paint them on the XPS foam and end up with a masterpiece. I cut the wooden planks, bended them, paint them on the XPS foam, and the result was quite disappointing. Change of plans. I decided to remove the planks and texture the XPS foam so it would look like wood. I also decided that there will be a row of cannons on each side of the ship, so using a small piece of chipboard as a guide, I started cutting the openings. I framed them on the 3 sides and left the upper part clear so I can attach lids later on, something which I never actually did. After that, I reconsidered my decision of not using any wooden planks, and I thought I should give it another try and place only some, mostly on the upper part of the ship, which was not so curved. The outcome really paid me off, and at this point I started feeling that I was getting somewhere. I let the planks dry in place, and next day I glued them on the XPS foam using wood glue. So, having the main body of my ship ready, I continued on creating the railings that will be attached on the gunwales. This is another fancy word that comes from the world of ship construction, and I'm just playing smart here because I haven't actually built proper gunwales on my ship, which is this part. But this is not an accurate model of a ship. I wouldn't dream on building something like that, it's way out of my league. So according to that spirit, I allowed myself to be more free and not try to follow any accurate ship designs. Like these round-shaped railings here, which might not be realistic, but I thought they'll give the whole thing a more royal feeling. I think they turn out quite nice. I used wood savings from previous projects to cover any left holes and openings, and the body of my ship was done. Using a small knife, I started scratching the planks to create wood texture. I should probably have done this before gluing them on the body, but I totally forgot about it. And at this point I realized that I didn't like the wooden frames on the cannon openings, so I removed them. And then I decided that the wood texture was not as good as I wanted, so I reached out for my chisels. Well, actually, my grandfather's chisels. He was a wood carver, and although I never got to learn this art from him, I am very grateful to have his tool set. After some chisel treatment, I was finally very happy with the wood texture. I used chipboard to create new frames for the cannon openings. I glued the new frames in place and then textured them a little bit with my X-Acto knife. I made the marks where the masts should be and then removed the wood there so I can stick them into the XPS foam. It doesn't look like a boat anymore. Then I started texturing the XPS foam. I first marked the planks with a pencil and then continued to form them using the pencil first and then one of my clay tools. At the end, I used my cutter to create the texture of wood on each plank. As a final detail, I pinned each side of the planks with sewing pins to simulate nails. I then primed everything using black acrylics mixed with a small amount of Mod Podge to secure my XPS foam. Time for accessories. I love going to second-hand stores, so I paid a visit to my favorite one, looking for hidden treasures, and I stumbled across this piece of jewelry. I removed the central piece to see if I can attach it on the ship for some royal looks. As I said before, this ship is not an accurate model, so it's not going to have all the parts of a ship, but still, I wanted to have some stuff that will make it look a little more realistic. So using again popsicle sticks, I decided to build 3 staircases and a hatch to place on the deck. So, we have the stairs, the masts, the hats, the royal thingy, and some tiny warriors which I intended to place at the rear side of the ship so they look like huge decorative statues. I got stuck with this idea when I saw Vasa, the royal Viking ship which sank right after it set sail in the port of Stockholm. Tragic story. There was a mistake on calculations. Since my ship is full of constructive errors too, I like to think of it as the tiny, long-lost descendant of the mighty Vasa. Therefore, I bought a bag full of miniature warriors to just use 4 of them. Does anyone want any 2-centimeter ancient warriors? I have given all my friends and still have plenty. Time to craft the masts. I destroyed 1 pair of chopsticks for the main mast and I used smaller wood sticks for the part on which the sails will be attached, and also for the other 2 masts. Using my micromotor, I made a row of holes on each mast and put toothpicks through them to create steps. Once more, I textured the wood using my chisel and the construction of the masts was complete. I finally reached the point where I could start painting. I made a few shades of grey and brown and started happily painting my ship. At the end, all of that happiness flew out the window when I realized that my ship looked like a chocolate cake. So I primed once more, using a light base this time, and went through the whole painting procedure all over again. Back to the warriors. This type of statues on old ships used to be wooden, but I don't know how to make plastic look like wood, so I'm turning them into metal. Then I used the same dark metallic color on my piece of jewelry to make it look less shiny and kind of old. Time to black wash everything. I put few drops of black acrylic in a lot of water, spray it and wiped with a paper napkin so the color entered every tiny crack, creating beautiful shadows and highlighting the texture of every surface. I then glued some rope on the joints of the masts to make them look a little more realistic. This is the really joyful part of assembling all the extra elements. I used wood glue to attach the stairs, the hats and the warriors in place. For the piece of jewelry though, I didn't feel safe with wood glue because it's kind of heavy, so I used transparent mounting glue instead. It takes few hours to cure, but it's the strongest glue I have used so far. Diving in my kitchen supplies, found a package of thick macaroni, which was the perfect size for the cannons. I painted 2 of them black, cut them in small pieces, placed them and had the rest of them for lunch. While doing that, I kept thinking something is missing.
You're right. Something is missing.
Christmas decorations? Well, no. But I used 2 little Christmassy star stickers to create a wheel. I mean, okay, the ship is not an accurate model, but I cannot pass by the wheel. There were many ideas on how to make it, but they all turned up to be a disaster, and I was getting real frustrated. But luckily, this funny thing with the stickers worked out pretty well, and I love the result. Now, for this part of the ship, which I don't know how it's called, and I got a little bit bored of googling ship parts all the time, I painted few strings black, tied them up on a small piece of wood along with some decorative beads and started building a rope stair. Sails. I took pieces of gauze fabric and I glued the upper edges with wood glue so they look sewn. I found it impossible for me to sew them for real, so I'm faking it. And the glue worked just fine. Then I continued faking by creating the vertical sewing lines using a pen. I think the result was quite convincing. After all my sails were finished, I glued them on the masts. For a drop of realism, I stitched them on the mast so they look as if they are hanging of ropes. I glued the pair of rope stairs. Okay, I'm gonna Google this word. They are called shrouds. Sounds German. Anyway, I put the masts in place without gluing them because I needed to be able to remove them so I can tangle the ship in Lapis tentacles. And there she is, with her warriors, her royal thingy, the wheel, the cannons.
I love her.
She looks good. Let's sink her. The thing is that this ship is supposed to be at the bottom of the sea. I didn't want it to simply look old. I wanted to look sunk. So for a start, I mixed some sand with crafting glue and water and created a type of sand mud, which I applied on every surface beside the sails, so it looked as if the ship is lying at the bottom of the sea for a long time. To emphasize this effect, I added a layer of very watery mud with glue using argil soil this time because of its nice color and texture. The third layer is going to be algae, which I created using once again a mix of glue, water and artificial moss.
It looks more like slime to me.
I made some cuts on the sails so they look kind of destroyed from the battle with the Kraken and add some algae on them, on the mast and the shrouds, which I found out that the correct pronunciation is shrouds and to me still sounds German. Continuing with the living things on the ship, I decided to create a few corals. So I used fragments of a real coral and tiny pieces of decorative packaging fabric. Voila! These tiny 3 corals will make their home on the sunken ship. Let's make some seaweed. Using the method I have seen when creating doll wigs, I made some green clumps to simulate seaweed and I glued them on the top part of the masts. And now for the dead things on the ship. There is no respectable sunken ship without its ghosts. Right? I decided to create 3 tiny ghosts that will inhabit the ship. 3, again. What's going on here? I wanted them to be very, very light so I can use glue only on a small part on each of them without fearing that they will fall from their place. For that reason, I used medical gauze, packaging styrofoam and a pipe cleaner, all very light materials. And here they are. I think they look a little bit sad, which is perfect, considering that they are, well, dead. Well, at least they have won each other. I glued them on their permanent places, and the project The Lost Child of Vasa was complete. Let's have a proper look. What do you think of my little ship? You think it's tasty enough for the Kraken? Please let me know in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching, and I wish you great crafting adventures. See you next time.